In 1979, Jeff Burgess lost the use of his left arm. Attempting the world water ski speed record at Surfers Paradise, he fell at 220 kilometres an hour, tearing the nerves in his arm away from his spinal cord. But that didn't stop him from competing. Earlier this year, he travelled to Lake Heron near London for the inaugural World Disabled Water Ski Championships. Competing against 60 other water skiers from 17 countries, Jeff won the ski jump, trick section and was second in the slalom, giving him the overall title.
Yeah, well, I guess I've been water skiing probably since I was 5-year-old and gravitated towards ski racing. Won a couple of Australian championships, South African, English, American, and I was silly enough at the time to think I wanted the world speed record and managed to wipe out at 220 kilometres an hour. As a result of that, I, during the fall, dug my shoulder in and severed the nerves in my spine and paralysed my left arm, which slowed me down for a while, but being interested in the sport, I virtually got straight back into it and just kept skiing from there.
Well, it's a big turning point in 1979, wasn't it? What made you go on, do you think, and try for this?
It just seemed it just seemed normal, the only normal thing to do. Water skiing has always been a sport I've been good at, but more to a point I've enjoyed it. So you just keep doing something you enjoy. So the fact you're doing it with one arm makes it a bit more difficult, so you just make sure you get stronger and modify things so you can enjoy it as much as you used to.
Well, tell us now a little bit about the World Championships. What was it like competing?
It was good. It was the first World Championships. Organisation is fantastic. 7 people from 17 countries. Typical English weather, 16 degrees and freezing cold. That was a bit of a shame, but yeah, it was good. I managed to sort of upset a few people and win a few gold medals, which I was pretty pleased about, but I don't think the Poms were. But,
the competition must have been pretty strong too, because it's there were big teams from England and America there.
Yeah, I was. The competition was good. I think the main thing I probably had in my favour, apart from the amount of time I've been skiing, is that I don't think anyone was as fit as I was. And like when you're water skiing with a disability, I think fitness really plays a lot more important part than just skiing normally.
So that's the major difference then?
I think so. Yeah. I was probably. I was a bit more. I'm not dedicated about skiing, but dedicated about being fit, and I think that's the difference.
What was the biggest thrill of the championships for you?
Probably the jump event. I won the jump event by sort of over 60 feet, which I knew I'd win it, but I didn't think I'd quite win it by that much, and I just sort of it just really showed them what you can do if you sort of have a bit of a go.
Well, a great result. What now?
I guess try and keep water skiing, keep enjoying the sunshine, and wait for the next World Championships in France and hope that the weather's better.
Good afternoon, I'm Helen Hughes. In tonight's news, a report from the vineyards where wine growers are assessing the effects of severe frosts in South Australia. Damage is extensive and as a result, local producers are expecting their wines to be in great demand.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
During the past week, severe frosts in the Coonawarra and Padthaway regions and a freak hailstorm in the Barossa Valley have hit the South Australian winemakers hard. Top quality grapes, worth around $1,000 a tonne, were badly damaged. The 1988 vintage is now in jeopardy. While South Australian wine growers assess their loss, with different vineyards reporting a range of 20 to 80% crop damage, here in the Hunter, winemakers say it's an ill wind.
We directly compete in the premium end of the quality market with Coonawarra, so there may be some long-term benefits in that our wines will be more in demand and the price may come up considerably.
But the shortage of top quality grapes cuts both ways. Some Hunter Valley winemakers have vineyards in South Australia, others buy grapes from that state to bottle here or use in blends. And the usual excess grapes used at Mount Pleasant for experimental wines are also expected to be in scarce supply. At this stage, it's too early to predict whether the price of premium wines will go up next year.
I don't think the consumer would take a very big hike in price at present. Where it is going to probably hurt us in general is a lot of the wines are being exported at present. So it may mean that the export market's going to suffer if the people want to supply their normal customers in Australia.
Albert and Eva Roberts are both in their 80s and both invalid pensioners. Last week they became victims of a daring daylight car robbery. Their gold 1972 Kingswood station wagon was their pride and joy. It was stolen while they were shopping with their daughter at Charlestown Shopping Square last Thursday. This weekend the car was found, burnt out and dumped in the sand dunes behind Belmont North. Since then, scavengers have ransacked the wreck, lifting the engine and any other valuable part. The car was insured for $2,000, but its worth to the elderly couple was much greater than that. For the whole family, it's been an ordeal they could have done without.
I feel totally disgusted because it's obvious that they only took it for a joyride and they had no need to destroy the thing. They burnt it with tools and everything, and it really disgusts us.
Although car theft is on the decline, it's long been a problem in the Belmont and Charlestown area, and you don't have to come too far to find evidence of that fact. Here in bushland near Bennett's Green, an area has been dubbed by both the locals and the police force as the stolen car graveyard. The NRMA and GIO figures confirm that there's been a 30% drop in claims for stolen cars in the past year. However, the targets still appear to be cars about 10 years old, usually Kingswoods and Tiranas. The insurance companies say this reflects the difficulty in getting parts for these older models. Shopping centre car parks, even during the day, are favourite locations for car thieves, especially in the Newcastle and Charlestown area. At night time, it's the RSL and Bowling Club car parks which are usually hit. On the Central Coast, the railway car parks at Wyong and Doyleson Station continue to be car theft hotspots. Only 1 in 3 cars is recovered on average without any damage. Most are either stripped or burnt out. Despite recording all cars stolen and boasting a high recovery rate, Newcastle Police declined to tell the public where they were most likely to have their cars stolen. Their excuse today: the superintendent is off sick.
Representatives from the Shortland electricity areas of Muswellbrook, Maitland, Singleton and Newcastle were present today to see the money handed over. It was raised through a weekly pay packet deduction scheme originally started for a year in 1985. The employees raised more than $11,000 that year, and the idea proved so popular, instead of finishing, it was expanded. Professor John Forbes, director of the oncology unit, says the money will go towards furnishing a new cancer ward, which he says will give the unit even greater possibilities.
It helps us go a long way towards being able to say that patients treated here for cancer will get treatment as good as anywhere else in the country, and in many cases better than anywhere else in the country.
Professor Forbes says public support for the 18-month-old oncology unit has not waned.
Well, I'm amazed at how far we've gone. At the present time, for example, we're able to spend almost $1 million on the building of the new ward and the furnishing of it. We've seen the villa units commenced so that patients and their families that have to travel from outside of Newcastle can be properly accommodated. We're about to get a new second linear accelerator, which we desperately need to deliver treatment. The hospital is getting a new CT scanner with the help of NBN in particular and a lot of other people in the community. It's a very, very long list now as to for these sorts of contributions.
The elite company of dancers is considered the best in the world. Their performances are sellouts, and for the past 80 days, the 75 dancers have enchanted audiences throughout Australia and New Zealand. Their Newcastle season was extended by 2 days due to overwhelming demand, an indication of just how formidable their reputation is. Tonight they grace the Civic Theatre for the last time before travelling to Sydney and then back to Moscow. Their schedule has been so tight there has been no spare time for sightseeing, but today proved the exception. As the major sponsor of the Newcastle leg of the tour, NBN today invited the dancers to catch a glimpse of the region's beauty. Port Stephens and Hungerford Hill were high on the agenda. With the help of their interpreter, the dancers said they were impressed with the Hunter and Australia.
They will remember the warm reception of the audiences and the nature of Australia, and also koala and kangaroo.
The company will have a short break in the Soviet Union, then it will visit Japan, followed by a 4-month tour of India.
At only 19 years of age, Melissa is already becoming a well-known face and figure on the Australian and international bodybuilding circuit. Despite only taking up the sport 2 years ago, this year she's won every competition she's entered, including her class in the United Bodybuilding Association's international competition held in America last April. For Melissa, bodybuilding is a natural.
I've always been interested in, sports since I've been a young age, touch football, athletics, netball, so I've always been into that athletic type sports. So when I started to first work in a gymnasium, I liked the female bodybuilders that I used to read and hear about, so I thought I'd give bodybuilding a go.
Melissa's greatest victory so far came last weekend, when she so impressed the judges with this routine that she won not only the over 52 kilogram class, but also the overall women's section of the Gold's Classic Bodybuilding Championship held in Brisbane. As part of her prize, she will now fly to Rome in December to represent Australia in the world title. Melissa believes a crackdown on the use of steroids in the sport, which now carries a 12-month suspension for those found guilty, could work in her favour at the titles.
Now that they've brought the drug testing in, a lot of the good girls won't risk turning up, so the judges now are looking for that all-over proportional shape and symmetry. So as far as that goes, I'm in it, so you never know.
Transport Ministry Chief Executive John Crow visited Minmai to hear the locals' view of coal haulage by road. Coal and Allied already has approval to haul 1,000 tonnes by road each day from the Stockrington No. 2 colliery to Newcastle. Now, following the closure of the Richmond Vale Railway, the company wants to haul an extra 500 tonnes a day by road to Hexham. The residents fear more and more coal in the future will be moved by road in unchecked quantities.
Well, I'll be reporting to the Minister on the extent of the concerns, the detail of their concerns, and certainly be reporting to him on their strong belief that every effort should be made to keep the Richmond Vale Railway open. Though it's got to be admitted that there's extreme economic difficulties in doing that, of course.
How strong is their case versus the economic difficulties faced by the mines?
Well, I wouldn't like to say, because I haven't had the opportunity yet to talk to Coal and Allied, and I'll certainly be taking that opportunity also. I also intend to talk to council's officers, both Newcastle City and Cessnock.
The Minmai Residents Action Group, incorporating the Richmond Vale Railway FEDFA members, wants the state government to subsidise continued rail haulage to Hexham. That is, until either the colliery extracts enough coal to make rail haulage economically viable, or coal deposits are exhausted and production stops.
The government's policy is essentially to haul coal wherever possible by rail indeed, but in that one has to give consideration to firstly the location of mines as to whether they are suitable for rail haulage, and of course the economics of the situation, and that's particularly relevant in the current economics of the coal industry.
It's the 15th of October 1937, and the morning's paper carries more news of the Chinese sailors refusing to sail their ship, the Silksworth, out of Newcastle Harbour. Only days before, the Japanese had invaded the Chinese province of Manchuria. The Silksworth, with its crew of 36 Chinese and a cargo of war chemicals and wheat, was destined for one of the Chinese ports now controlled by the Japanese. The Chinese crew were determined the cargo would not fall into Japanese hands, and Newcastle Trades Hall supported them. 50 years from the event, the Newcastle Labour Historical Society invited one of those intimately involved in what became nationally known as the Silksworth incident to relive those days. Big Bird was a member of the Communist Party who assisted the sailors.
If a certain number of illegal immigrants were not ready to sail when the ship was ready to sail, it couldn't move until the local authorities rounded up the illegal immigrants and put them back on board. I was given the job of hiding 6 of the crew and so that they became illegal immigrants.
30 of the sailors were eventually arrested and taken to Maitland Jail. However, Vic Bell managed to smuggle the other 6 out of Newcastle and out of the hands of the law. Taken to Sydney, the Chinese attracted much media attention and eventually secured for themselves and their shipmates passage back to free China. As Australia was not yet at war with Japan, the Silksworth was allowed to sail with a replacement crew, leaving behind a memorable incident in Newcastle's past.
Restaurant is situated in Derby Street, Cooks Hill. It represents stage 1 of a $1 million project by local development company Tenella Properties. Inside, architects have designed the new office space to take full advantage of the former warehouse's spacious structure. According to the developer, it's only the beginning of a much larger commercial venture.
The third stage will be the complete renovation of the wool store, which that's going to be a major job. There's 14,000 square metres in that. And we're looking at and discussing with council turning that into a homemaker centre where it'll be one-stop shopping for complete homewares, you know, even from architects to interior decorators, the whole works.
Adjacent to the offices is the new Japanese restaurant. It's also been carefully designed. A Japanese architect was flown out to draw up the plans, as was the carpenter, gardener and chefs. The showpiece is a traditional Japanese tea ceremony room with tatami mats featuring imported cedar wood. Combining both the Western and Japanese cultures, 3 unique dining rooms have been specially designed for those wanting a change from the normal setting. Unlike most Australian restaurants, the food will be prepared before the customer's eyes and will be served on authentic Japanese diningware. The waitresses will wear traditional costume, serving delicacies quite new to most Western palates, according to owner Mark Yoshinaga.
Japanese, foods are completely different from European style and the Chinese style, and very Japanese food has a particular taste, such as sashimi and sushi and sukiyaki, all sorts of things almost, and quite traditional,
Following the Cabinet meeting in Albury yesterday, Housing Minister Frank Walker says the government won't proceed with changes which would have meant higher interest rates for some loans to low-income earners. These interest rate increases were to apply for borrowers from October the 1st. However, they now have a choice. They can either opt for the old low interest rate scheme or the new high interest rate scheme when it suits them. Despite the government's announcement today, the state-concerned low-income homeowners group won't rest until they have it in writing.
When we spoke to him yesterday, we asked on behalf of the ALP would they give it to us in writing. He said the ALP will not give you this in writing.
Why is that, do you think?
We think that he is leaving the options open.
Mr Lawton also believes Mr Walker is looking for election votes. He says Mr Walker's assurance that the scheme won't change again while he has the Housing Ministry portfolio is a ploy. A spokesman for Mr Walker admits an election is coming up, and if people want to retain government guarantees, they should vote the government back in. Mr Lawton says similar guarantees have been made by the Liberals and the Democrats. However, he believes the group is one step ahead.
When we first spoke to Mr Walker, he was adamant that there'll be no changes, the new scheme was here to stay. 1 week later, he's reverted the scheme, but we haven't got any assurances that they won't change the scheme again. Now, if we feel that if they can change the scheme in midstream once, what's to stop them from changing the scheme in midstream twice?
When will you feel you've won the battle?
When we've got it in writing.